In the cold silence of deep space, something strange happened. A signal came loud, broken, and full of fear. It was not a normal signal. It was a cry for help. At listening station 12 on Earth's South Pole, technician Maya sat alone. Her shift was quiet until her screen turned red and loud alarms began to beep. Unknown transmission detected. She leaned forward. The signal wasn't from Earth. It wasn't from any known planet. It was coming from far 22 light years away. She played. It. A broken voice repeated again and again. Help us. Please, they are burning everything. It wasn't human. It wasn't robotic. It sounded like something alive and terrified. Maya stared at the screen. This wasn't a normal SOS. This was a warning wrapped in fear. She sent it straight to Earth Command. By sunrise, the world's top leaders and military officers had gathered. The signal was playing on a loop. Admiral Juno Alvarez stood tall in the room, her face calm, eyes sharp. She had heard hundreds of distress calls before, but this one was different. Dr. Kellen, the chief alien language expert, stood beside her. We translated the message, he said. But there's more. At the end, someone whispered something. He played it. A quiet, shaking voice said, "If they hear you answer, they will come for you next." Everyone in the room went silent. Who is they? Asked the defense general. Dr. Cullen looked worried. We don't know. But this species wasn't calling us. They were calling anyone. And maybe that was a mistake. Earth had a choice. Ignore the message or answer it and risk war. They chose to answer, but not openly. A secret mission was created. Wrath-class Recon Fleet 5, deadly warships with silent drives, black armor, and weapons never shown to the galaxy. Their job? Investigate the source of the signal. Discover what happened. And if danger was coming for Earth, stop it before it reached home. Captain Elias Thorne commanded the TS Harbinger, the lead ship. He was a cold man, strong, quiet, experienced in battles across Mars and Europa. When the order came, he said only one thing: we jump in quiet, we come back loud. The fleet left Earth using quantum skip drives. Within moments, they crossed light years of space. They arrived at the dead system. What? They saw, shocked even Captain Thorne. Planets were broken. One had a giant hole in its center. Another had burning skies. Cities were turned to glass. Oceans had boiled away. What happened here? Asked the pilot. Thorne replied, something worse than war. Scanners picked up something weak signals. Old, fading. Follow them, said Thorne. One ship found a broken space station floating above a dead planet. Inside, one life sign was detected. They brought her in. She was alien. Blue skin. 4 arms. Eyes like liquid metal. Her body was burned. Weak. The medics kept her alive. When she woke up, she screamed. You shouldn't have come. You heard the signal? Captain Thorne stood beside her bed. Yes, we came to help, she cried. It wasn't for help. It was a trap, a test, to see who still cares. Thorne frowned. Who sent it? She whispered. They are not a people. They are the end. They wait in the dark, waiting for kindness. When someone answers, she looked at him, her eyes wide with fear. They come. Alarms suddenly rang across the Harbinger. Unknown object entering system. No known engines. Speed. Faster than light. Thorne rushed to the bridge. On the screen something appeared. Dark, silent. No lights. Just a shape. Like a shadow of a planet moving fast. Then all communication systems turned to static. One sound came through every speaker. Click, click, click. The alien girl screamed again. They've marked you. You answered. Now, you belong to them. Captain Thorne stood firm. He stared at the dark ship on screen, then said, "Send full report to Earth. Tell them this." He looked into the camera, face hard as stone. "The galaxy sent us a signal, and now they'll learn what happens when—" Deathworlders answer. The Wrath-class fleet floated in silence. Around them, broken planets, shattered moons, and ash-filled skies. It looked like the end of the world. No, it looked like the end of many worlds. Captain Elias Thorne stood on the bridge of the T.S. Harbinger, staring at the giant black object in the distance, the thing that had just appeared out of nothing. No lights, no engines. It just was, and it watched them. Still no communication? Thorne asked. "Nothing, sir," a comms officer replied. All channels blocked. Same repeating sound, click, click. On board the Med Bay, the rescued alien girl trembled under a blanket. Her name was Arinia. She came from a peaceful race called the Telari. Her people were scientists, explorers, not warriors. They sent out the signal because they were desperate, she whispered. We were running. Worlds were dying behind us. My people thought someone, anyone, would help. Captain Thorne nodded. We answered. But you say that's what they wanted. Arinia's eyes filled with tears. You don't understand. These creatures don't want help. They want to see who's still human, who still has empathy. And when they find that, she pointed to the dark shape on the screen. They burn it. The science officers scanned the nearby debris field. They found pieces of cities' giant towers now floating in space. Some still had energy running through them. Captain, said Commander Reyes, we found a structure that might hold data. A Telari research facility. Half destroyed, but still floating near a moon. Send a drone first, Thorne ordered. The drone entered through a torn hatch. Lights flickered. Broken screens. Dead bodies. But one console was still working. Inside it, a message logged. The team brought it back to the ship. Arinia helped translate. The log showed panic. The Telari had made first contact with a species they called the Silence. No one knew where the silence came from. They had no planets, no cities, no ships, only shapes. They didn't talk. They didn't ask. They just arrived. And erased. First. They silence your sky, said one log, then your oceans, then your bones. Captain Thorne paced the bridge. We still don't know what they want. Arinia looked at him. They want nothing. They don't talk. They don't take. They erase. You only meet them after someone answers the signal. Why do the signals still go out then? The navigator asked. Arinia whispered, because not all species believe the warning. Because some, like humans, still hope. The other Wrath-class ships reported similar findings. Dead planets. Destroyed satellites. Some alien logs ended mid-sentence. Screens caught in static. Then, one ship sent a new report. We found a survivor signal. On the planet's surface. Thorne's eyes narrowed. What kind of signal? Faint. Organic, deep underground. Thorne made a decision. We're going down. He ordered the Harbinger to descend into the broken planet's atmosphere. Storm clouds swirled above. Lightning flashed in red skies. The surface was covered in black dust and burned metal. They found the entrance to an underground facility sealed tight, hidden under what looked like a collapsed mountain. The away team suited up and entered. Inside. It was dark, silent, only the sound of boots and breathing. Then, movement. A door opened. A small, shaking hand held a glowing light. It was a child, blue-skinned, Telari, eyes full of fear. She looked up at them and asked in a soft voice, Are you the ones who answered? Captain Thorne knelt down. Yes. We're here to help. The Girl's eyes filled with tears. My mother said someone good would come, someone brave. But then, the sky screamed. She pointed behind her. There are others, but they are sick. The medics rushed in. 15 survivors, most of them children, were hiding for weeks. No food, no medicine, just waiting, hoping. Captain Thorne sent the message back to Earth. We found them, survivors, children. The silence didn't get them all. But just as the signal sent, the ship's alarm screamed. The dark shape had moved. It was no longer floating in deep space. It was coming toward the Harbinger fast. Back aboard the ship, Thorne shouted, "Raise shields. Prepare for retreat." The sky above the planet turned. Black lightning turned white. Then came a sound that shook the entire ship. Boom. 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 It wasn't weapons. It was something knocking. As if asking permission to come in. Thorne stared at the dark shape on the screen. Arinya stepped forward, whispering, "You helped us. You answered. Now they will never stop." Thorne's face turned hard. "No," he said. "They made a mistake. They called the wrong species." Alarms echoed across the TS Harbinger. Warning lights turned red. A dark shape outside the ship had moved. It was no longer still. It was coming straight at them. Captain Elias Thorne stood on the bridge, fists clenched. His voice was calm, but cold. "Shield status?" "Shields are holding for now," the officer replied. "But sir, that thing isn't using weapons. It's just pushing through space like it owns it." Thorne stared at the screen. The object didn't look like a ship. It had no engines, no lights, no structure. Just a black mass, like a living shadow. It made no noise. It sent no signal. It only made one sound. Click, click, click. It was slow, rhythmic, like footsteps. Like something hunting. In the medbay, Arinya held the small Telari girl close. "Found you," she whispered. "You answered the signal. And now the silence will follow you everywhere." The little girl looked up at her. "Will they hurt the humans?" Arinya nodded slowly. "They hurt everyone who still feels." Back on the bridge, Thorne gave the order. "Evacuate the survivors to the Wrathbound. Then take the fleet into low orbit. We'll fight if we must." "But sir," Commander Reyes said, "we don't know what it is. How do we fight something we can't even scan?" Thorne's voice was steady. "We are Deathworlders. We fight everything." The rescue ship Wrathbound launched from the surface with the Talari survivors on board. It broke atmosphere, engines glowing bright as it climbed to safety. That's when the black mass turned. It followed the Wrathbound, not the warships. Not the weapons. Just the children. "Target is changing course," shouted the navigation officer. "They're ignoring us." Thorne's face hardened. "It's not about war. It's about hope. That's what it wants to kill." He turned to weapons control. "Prepare Nova Lance. Load EMP spikes. And open the plasma banks. But Captain, those are for planetary defense. Then we'll show it what planet-born rage looks like." As the Harbinger's weapons powered up, a strange sound passed through the walls. A voice, not in words, but in memory. Officers clutched their heads. Some fell to their knees. One started crying, whispering, "Mom." Another screamed, "Stop, please." It wasn't a weapon. It was emotion. The silence was feeding off it. It made you feel your deepest pain, and then used it against you. Only Captain Thorne stood unaffected. Why? Because he had nothing left to lose. He whispered under his breath, "I already buried my past. You can't use it against me." Then louder, "Fire!" The Nova Lance blasted forward a spear of pure light. It hit the black shape dead center. For 1 second, it stopped moving. Then, It folded in on itself. Screams filled the ship, not from the crew, but from the thing outside. It was hurt, not dead, but bleeding in its own way. Suddenly, a second shape appeared, then a third, then 5 more. The sky darkened as more shadows came out of the void. They were never alone, whispered Arinya from the medbay. This was just the beginning. Thorn didn't panic. He looked at his crew. They were scared, but still standing. Good, he said. Then he turned to comms. Send a full burst to Earth. Tell them, we're not facing ships. We're facing something older. Something emotional. Something that kills hope. And it's coming. He stared at the new shadows. Tell Earth to wake up the Black Protocols. Everyone went silent. The Black Protocols were Earth's last line of defense. No treaties. No trials. No mercy. Only war without rules. Back on Earth, thousands of light years away, a deep bunker lit up. Satellites turned toward the stars. Old war as long as sleep opened red eyes. And in the center of it all, a voice whispered through the systems. The wrath of Earth has been authorized. Back aboard the Harbinger, the enemy shapes began to move in all directions. One passed through an asteroid, not around it, but through. The rock turned to ash. Commander Reyes gasped. That thing isn't matter. It's memory, hate, wrapped in energy. Thorn just smiled. Then we'll burn its memory too. He turned to weapons. Charge the solar core. The crew looked at him in shock. Sir, that will drain our life support. Thorn didn't blink. Then breathe less. As the shadows closed in, and the light from the plasma core began to glow white-hot, Thorn looked out the window one last time, and whispered, You chose the wrong species. The stars were gone, not because they had moved, but because the silence had come. 7 black shapes floated in the sky above the Telari system. They didn't move like ships. They glided like nightmares, feeding on fear, drifting closer with every second. On board the TS Harbinger, Captain Elias Thorn stood on the bridge, eyes locked on the screen. His crew waited for orders. The ship's core was glowing bright white and pulsing. The solar cannon was almost ready. Once fired, it would drain most of the ship's power. But if it worked, fire when charged, Thorn said. We won't run. Commander Reyes looked worried. Sir, the Black Protocols have been activated. Earth's backup fleets are waking up. Should we retreat and wait? Thorn shook his head. No. If we run now, they'll follow the children. We stopped them here. The survivors from the Telari colony, 15 kids and 3 wounded adults, had already been moved to the Wrathbound. It was on its way, back toward the fleet's rear guard, under escort, but one of the black shapes had broken off and was following them. They're not chasing power, Thorn said. They're chasing hope. In the weapons bay, the solar core reached full charge. Energy flowed through the spine of the ship, firing in 3, 2, 1. The cannon roared. A beam of white-hot plasma shot through space, striking the lead shadow. This time, the result was different. The shadow screamed, not in sound, but in vibration. The entire ship shook. The enemy shape curled in pain. It began to shrink. Confirmed hit. The weapons officer shouted, It's fading. But then the others responded. The remaining 6 shapes opened wide like mouths made of stars. Energy gathered around them. Then came the storm. Black. Lightning struck the Harbinger's shields. Panels exploded. Systems flickered. Still, Captain Thorn didn't move. Status? Shields down to 47%. Hull damage on decks 3 and 5. But we're still alive. He turned to the crew. You wanted to see what makes us Deathworlders? He raised his voice. We don't fight fair. We fight furious. On Earth. A message appeared across all military screens. Harbinger engaged with Class S anomaly. Heavy casualties expected. Wrath-class fleet requesting reinforcements. Within minutes, the order spread. Deploy the Black Fleet. 12 ships rose from the hidden shipyards under Neptune. They were silent. Painted black, unnamed. Each ship had only one rule: no mercy. Back at the Telari system, the battle grew worse. The Harbinger was bleeding power. Its lights flickered. Its crew was tired. But they were still fighting. Suddenly help arrived. 2 Wrath-class ships jumped in from high orbit. The TS Eclipse and TS Crucible opened fire with thermal lances. Another shadow exploded. The sky shook. Arinya, the blue-skinned alien girl, watched from the med bay. She was holding one of the Telari children in her arms. She looked at the screen and whispered, "You humans are strange. You burn everything, but somehow still protect." Captain Thorne received a coded message. It was short. Black Fleet, ETA, 3 minutes. He smiled. Now the galaxy will see why we don't answer every call. He stood. Send this to all remaining. Enemy shapes. The message played across all frequencies, in all languages. You sent a signal to test our kindness. You found our wrath instead. You wanted to see if we still had hearts. Now you'll see what happens when we fight. For someone else. Then the shadows paused. They turned, slowly. Almost like they were afraid. And that's when the Black Fleet arrived. 12 silent ships. Their shapes sharp. Their engines red. Each one carrying weapons that had been banned even by humans. Black Fleet, engage, Thorne ordered. One by one, the ships opened fire. Anti-star missiles, reality cutters, EMP shockwebs. Weapons designed not just to destroy, but to erase from existence. The sky turned into fire. 1, 2, 3. Shadows vanished. And then there was only one. The final black shape tried to retreat. It folded space. Tried to vanish. But the Harbinger locked on. No escape, Thorne growled. He looked at Arinya through the metcam. This was your pain. Now it's our war. He raised his hand. Fire the core. The solar cannon roared again, and the final shape was gone. Silence returned. Real silence. The kind that meant peace, not fear. The sky cleared. The stars came back, and Earth had made its message loud and clear. You don't hurt the weak when Deathworlders are listening. The war was over. For now, but Earth was not celebrating. The Telari system was quiet again. The last black shape, the final piece of the silence, was destroyed by the Harbinger and the Black Fleet. Stars returned to the sky. Earned planets cooled. Survivors cried in relief. But Captain Elias Thorne knew better. This wasn't their full strength, he said quietly. He stood alone in the observation deck of the TS Harbinger, watching the stars. This was only their whisper. Back on Earth, news of the battle had spread. The galaxy heard what humanity had done. The message from the Harbinger echoed through every system. You called to test our kindness. You woke our wrath. But with that message came fear. Many alien species, some allies, some enemies, started whispering again about old legends. Legends about humans. There was a name, a story, a myth from before the silence had ever arrived. They spoke of the soldier from Earth, a hybrid, born in fire, raised in darkness, trained not to survive, but to end wars. The galaxy called him only one thing, the one they feared. His real name was Commander Kale Stratus. No one had seen him in 10 years. Some thought he was dead. Others believed he had been locked away by Earth itself, too dangerous, too powerful. But when Earth received the Harbinger's full report, one man reviewed it in silence. President DeLoss of the Earth Council stood in front of a black door deep under the surface of Luna Base. He scanned his hand. The door opened. Inside was a chamber of glass and metal. A cryopod hissed open. Inside it stood Cale Stratus. Tall, pale, scars on his arms, one eye glowing faint blue. Still wearing his battlesuit from the old war. He stepped out. No words. Just silence. The president nodded. We need you again. Cale looked up at the stars through the dome. They came back, didn't they? The president nodded. And we're not finished with them yet. Back on the Harbinger, Arinia sat with the children in the medbay. She held the youngest one, who still cried in her sleep. Captain Thorne entered. Quietly. You looked up at him. You could have left us. You could have turned around when you saw what we faced. Thorne shook his head. Humans don't run from monsters. She smiled sadly. No, you become them, but only to protect. They. Next morning, a new signal came. Not from the silence, but from deep space, far beyond mapped star charts. It was encrypted in human code. Only Earth's core systems could read it. The message said, they are regrouping, preparing again. But this time, they will not just test you. They will fight you. Send him. Captain Thorne forwarded it to Earth Command. Within minutes, Earth replied, Commander Cale Stratus has been awakened. The Harbinger's crew stood in formation as a small dropship landed on their deck. Its doors opened. Cale walked out slowly. His face was calm. His eyes scanned everything. He looked at the crew, some young, some seasoned, all still shaken. By the battle, he didn't give a speech. He just said, show me where they screamed. In the war room, Cale studied the data. He listened to the sound. Click, click, click. He nodded. I've heard this before. A long time ago. Before they had a name. Before we had a fleet. Commander Reyes frowned. You mean the silence? Attacked Earth before? Cale nodded. Once, but they were weaker. They learned from us. Now they're trying again. Thorne stepped forward. What do we do now? Cale looked up. His voice was soft but deadly. We go to them. The crew went silent. Cale continued. They hide beyond the edge of this galaxy. They erase hope. They wait for those who care. But they never expected humanity to hunt them down. This time, we don't wait for a distress call. This time, we knock. Thorne nodded. How many ships do you need? Cale didn't even blink. 1. The room was silent as commander. Cale Stratus stood before the crew of the TS Harbinger. His voice was cold, controlled. They fear us for a reason. Everyone in the room listened. No one moved. No one breathed too loud. The silence kills kindness, destroys empathy, ends the species that care. He paused. But they forgot what happens when humanity gets angry. Deep in space, the Black Fleet reformed. 12 deadly ships now followed Cale's signal. But he only chose one to lead the way, the Oblivion Spear, Earth's oldest and most dangerous warship. It had no windows. No colors, just black metal. Its eye was banned in 3 galaxies. Its main weapon was codenamed Heartstopper. Only one person had ever commanded it, Cale Stratus. The silence was regrouping. Far beyond the stars, where no maps existed, they floated around a dead white star. Thousands of black shapes gathered, speaking in clicks and pulses. They were waiting, not for a signal, but for a feeling. They fed on grief, fear, guilt, and the galaxy was full of it. On a nearby station, a peaceful alien race called the Ferrari were broadcasting a soft call. We seek help. We lost half our people. They didn't know it yet, but their signal had just become bait. In the black field of death. The shadows turned toward the station. They began to move. The room was silent as Commander Cale Stratus stood before the crew of the TS Harbinger. His voice was cold, controlled. They fear us for a reason. Everyone in the room listened. No one moved. No one breathed too loud. The silence kills kindness, destroys empathy, ends the species that care. He paused, but they forgot. What happens when humanity gets angry? Deep in space, the Black Fleet reformed. 12 deadly ships now followed Cale's signal. But he only chose one to lead the way, the Oblivion Spear, Earth's oldest and most dangerous warship. It had no windows, no colors, just black metal. I was banned in 3 galaxies. Its main weapon was codenamed Heartstopper. Only one person had ever commanded it, Cale Stratus. The silence was regrouping. Far beyond the stars, where no maps existed, they floated around a dead white star. Thousands of black shapes gathered, speaking in clicks and pulses. They were waiting, not for a signal, but for a feeling. They fed on grief, fear, guilt, and the galaxy was full of it. On a nearby station, a peaceful alien race called the Ferrari were broadcasting a soft call. We seek help. We lost half our people. They didn't know it yet, but their signal had just become bait. In the black field of death, the shadows turned toward the station. They began to move, but they weren't the only ones. The Oblivion Spear jumped into the region, right between the station and the enemy swarm. Cale stood on the bridge, alone. He activated the ship's main cannon. Target emotion frequency, fear. Set feedback to loop. Overload their signal waves. The AI replied, warning. Emotional feedback may damage biological minds within 100 kilometers. Cale didn't flinch. Do it. The cannon fired. It didn't shoot fire or lasers. It shot memory. Shadows froze. They didn't scream. They just stopped. Shivered. Because for the first time, they felt fear. Not theirs. Human fear. The kind you bury deep inside. The kind that turns to rage. The kind that never forgets. Back on Earth, the president watched the feed. Dr. Kellen spoke softly beside him. They used to call humans a threat. The president nodded. Now they'll call us the curse. Arinya sat with the Telari children. In Earth orbit, watching the stars through a viewing dome. One child asked her, will they come back? She smiled. No, because the man they fear most is coming to them. Cale activated full weapon protocols. All 12 ships in the black. Fleet lit up. I war engines sang in unison. Then Cale spoke one final message. You wanted to erase us. But humans remember everything. You kill hope, but we turn pain into fire. You found the wrong species. Now we erase you. The ships charged. They didn't ask questions. They didn't stop. They burned across. The stars like angry gods. And in the heart of that storm was one man. As the silence began to fall apart, some tried to run, but there was nowhere to hide. Because now, the galaxy wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. It was afraid of what lived inside the light. The final war had begun, deep beyond the edge of the galaxy, where maps ended and light no longer traveled. 12 human warships tore through the darkness. At the center of them all, leading the charge, was the Oblivion Spear. Inside, Commander Cale Stratus stood still like a shadow that had learned how to fight back. The silence had gathered, thousands of dark shapes. No engines, no lights, just a black sea of death waiting to erase everything. They came without sound, but humans didn't need sound to speak. They spoke in fire. Cale gave the order. All ships full burn, no mercy, no pause, no retreat. The Black Fleet roared. The weapons launched not just plasma and missiles, but signals of emotion. Pain, rage, regret, hope. All the things the silence hated most. and it broke them. Back on Earth, billions watched the battle on their screens. No sound came through, just flashes of fire. No one spoke. Even children sat quietly, watching humanity fight for those who had no voice. A young girl asked her mother, "Are they saving us?" The mother shook her head. "They're saving everyone." Inside the Oblivion Spear, the AI began to flicker. "Warning," it said. "Main cannon overheating. Emotional feedback reaching critical." Kale didn't blink. "Push harder." "Warning. Command strain may cause psychological collapse." Kale spoke without fear. "I'm already broken." Then something strange happened. The enemy began to speak, not in words, but in feelings. Sadness, loneliness, a deep, cold emptiness. Kale felt it. The silence wasn't just a weapon. It was the grief of a dead race, turned into a storm. Kale whispered, "You were once alive." The darkness responded with a wave of sorrow that made the ship shake. But Kale didn't stop. "We know pain, but we don't spread it. We carry it." He stepped toward the cannon core, opened the final lock. The AI paused. Authorization, black protocol end light. Kale placed his hand on the trigger. "This is for every child who cried alone. Every planet that vanished. Every heart you turned cold. You wanted to test our mercy. Now see our justice." He fired. The core burst open. The Oblivion Spear became a star blinding, white, burning everything around it. Thousands of black shapes screamed and vanished. The entire region of space turned gold. Then silence, real silence, not the silence. The ship floated in pieces. The fleet was damaged, but alive. Kale was gone. Or so they thought. 3 days later, a small escape pod was found drifting near a binary star. Inside, Kale sat, unconscious but breathing. When he woke up, the first thing he asked was, "Did they feel it?" Captain Thorne, standing beside him, nodded. They did. And now, they're gone. Across the galaxy, species who had once ignored Earth sent messages of thanks. Some offered peace, some offered fear. But Earth sent only one message back. "We don't answer every call, but if we do, prepare for war." Back on the Talari world, the children played under a new sky. The stars looked different now. Brighter, safer. Nia smiled as she watched them. A child ran up to her and asked, "Who saved us?" She smiled softly and said, "A human." The one who answered. Far above, on the repaired Harbinger, Captain Thorne placed Kale's old helmet in a glass case. Below it, a message engraved in steel. "We were called to help. We came in fire. We left them silence." And so the galaxy changed, because one signal was sent, one species answered. And now the stars would always remember. Humanity doesn't forget. Humanity doesn't forgive. But humanity fights for everyone. The END.